أشرقت نفسي بنور من فؤادي حينما رددت يا رب العباد.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First and foremost, jazakumullah khair for everyone attending today's talk, which is about parenthood in Islam. Now, no doubt, one of the things we find that is universal amongst humanity is certain points, like the topic of birth, the topic of death, and the topic of in-between parenthood, because this is the cycle of life. So, hands up, who's a revert here? I know, mashallah. You're reverts, yes, mashallah. But alhamdulillah, you're Muslims today, yes? Your parents are non-Muslim, they still gave you what you required to bring you to this stage. To bring you to this stage where here today you're sitting as Muslims in this circle. So they did their duty. They were your parents. They still are your parents. And they did this thing which is to look after you, to nurture you, and to give you whatever guidance they believed is good, and they guided you to this point today. So this is the circle of life, and that's why whenever we talk about parenthood, it's not something that is just exclusive for Muslims. That's why the topic says parenthood in Islam, to say that we're going to talk about those aspects that Islam tells us is what we should do in regards to parenting. Now obviously parenthood is a big topic. The reason being, there's many different angles you can look at this. Parenthood, rather than just being parents, you're looking at the angle from being the ones who are parents. You can look at it from the other issue, which is the rights of the children as well, what they expect from their parents. So there's many different ways that you can look at it. So if I was to say to yourselves, what do you understand should be the core aspects of parenthood? Some of the things that should come to your mind is first and foremost the issue of care. This is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put in each and every one of us, is to care for the child. After all, subhanallah, if we look to it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's messenger said that each and every one of you comes together where first? In the belly of your mother. And in Arabic that is called raham. The womb is called raham, which is like rahma. Rahma, which means mercy. Can you see? So that's why one of the things that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he tried to explain to us regards to how Allah is Ar-Rahman, the one who is merciful or the beneficent, is to say, look to each and every one of you and look to how much your mother loves you. Can you imagine that? Which mother doesn't love their child? Can you imagine? It's something Allah puts by fitrah, by natural instinct to want to look after that which you bear and which you bore. So Allah loves you more than this. And that's why he's called Ar-Rahman, from Rahmah. So one of the things is, first and foremost, is whenever you think about parenthood, is to understand the issue of care. And from an Islamic point, I'm going to say, what is the duty of care? What is your duty to care in regards to your children? And parenthood, don't just think it means the father and the mother. Muslims, as you know, we're extended families. Now for brothers who are revert, you may not understand this concept of extended family, because it's something quite synonymous with people from a Muslim background or from a region where a lot of Muslims are. For example, Asian subcontinent, in Africa, you'll find the concept of extended family is always there. To the point, even the people who are non-Muslim there, they understand the concept of extended families. I'll give you an example. People who live in India. Is it just Muslims have extended families? No, the Hindus, they themselves have this concept of extended family and so on. So it's the duty of care, is in who is responsible and what should he do as part of the care of being a parent or being under parenthood. And that's why this is not just a topic just for those who are fathers here. It could be a topic also for uncles, because you have a responsibility as well. It is a topic for aunts. and obviously grandparents and so on. Everyone has a part to play when it comes to caring for children. So the first point we will discuss is something called the duty of care. Also, we will discuss the issue of hidayah, which is guidance. Because obviously, when a child is born and comes to you, he needs guidance, does it not? He has to even be taught how to feed. Is that not the case? But mashallah, they learn to feed very quickly. Because again, fitrah, Allah makes it very easy. So, the issue of guidance. And then, children, we don't just guide them and just leave them, do we? What do we do? For many years, we're supervising them, are we not? Making sure that wherever we teach, they follow those things. So I want you to set those 3 points in our mindset, because when we talk about this topic, it's very vast. You know, people might think it's the rights of the parents we're going to talk about, or the rights of the children, or other aspects. It's a very vast topic. So I want you just to remember just those points as in the key aspects of what parenthood means. To care, to guide, and to supervise. And inshallah, if you understand those points, we're going to go for a little journey now where I'm going to talk about it in accordance to Al-Islam, and you see in the end the fruits of it, if we're able to do those things correctly. First and foremost, if you follow the news, one of the things that happened recently, I think only a few months ago, we saw in North London, we saw in South London, we saw in Manchester, Birmingham, what happened? We saw some people, they rose up. And one of the things that happened was rioting. Rioting, which means people out of control, and part of rioting is to cause damage, part of rioting is also to want to steal and rob, and so on and so on. We saw how people were very unruly. Now, when we look to those clips, what would you say the majority of the people were? Well, what sort of band age group did they fall under? Youth. Though there were some old people, which was ajib, like some really old people, you think, what are you doing walking out with a flat screen TV? But, you know, there were some old people as well, but also there were some very, very young people. Do you know the youngest people to be charged? One boy, one girl, 11 years old. 11 years old. The boy, he was charged for stealing a wheelie bin and obviously using it for something. The girl, she was charged with kicking in the window of a shop. 11 years old. Just to show you. Now, those people, they were charged and they will have that accounted against them. But 11 years old, where is the duty of care? Who's looking after them? Who's giving them this guidance? Where is the guidance there? That it's right to go and destroy and to steal and rob. Where's the supervision? Why are they out? Because a lot of the riots, they didn't happen during the daytime, did they? There were all these alerts going out, telling you that come the nightfall, what will happen? They will strike. They come out of nowhere and so on. So one of the things that we found around that time was this disobedience and unruliness, and a lot of the people, they saw the perpetrators of these sort of actions were youth. Now, one of the things that they did, what did they do? They arrested these people and they gave them charges. Very, very heavy charges. Some people are going to get imprisoned for 4 to 5 years. Now, when it went to the appeal court, one of the things that they wanted was it to be lessened. But the court, they ruled against this. Why? They wanted to make these sentences stand so that they would be a deterrent. To stop other youth ever wanting to do something like this again. I mean, your youth is so precious, is it not? Imagine if you lose 4 or 5 years of that. Gone. So they wanted it to be a deterrent. They wanted it to put you off. But one of the things, this is the point I want to get to, one of the things that arose from that sort of action was people started to think, what is our moral fabric of our society? Is this what our youth are capable of? If this is the case, why do they do this? Because you would expect this in the third world, wouldn't you, somewhere? Or where there's no stable government. You would expect that sort of action from them. So why is it that the youth would do such an action? And we are supposed to be one of the most developed countries in the world. Is it not the case? So it rose a lot of questions regards to children and how they're brought up. Because these are going to be the ones who are going to be running the society, are they not? They're the ones who are going to be contributing most to society. So this brought up the issue of children and how they should be brought up and what sort of values they should have. The other issue is, again, if you follow the news, you find this, is one of the things the government proposed recently is to give parenting classes. I know you heard the news and you thought, what is this? Baqwas, yeah? What is rubbish? When you're Muslim and you're from an extended family, you never ever dream of this, going to a parenting class. Because your parents are usually good role models anyway. You know how to become parents. But it's such a serious problem that one of the things that they said is that they're willing to set these classes up. Because these kids, they go to school from what age in this country? What age are you legally at? 5. Do you know by the time they reach 5, a lot of kids are very disobedient, unruly, unmanageable, to the point they enter school in whichever reception or year 1 and already unmanageable. Can you imagine it? It's such a big problem that the children, you can't manage them at that age, 5 years. So they said, no, we need to teach our parents lessons. For what reason? To make sure that they're not unruly, disobedient. To teach the parents, to teach the children adab, etiquettes. So a lot of the time when these sort of reports come up, I'm sure you just flicked over, this is rubbish, you know. But listen, look into the article, because if the government is looking into this, there's a problem out there. And even though they don't want to say that, you know, our moral fabric of our society is decaying because of the way we bring up our children, because this, it's like the zinat al-dunya, isn't it? It's like the glittering of the dunya at the moment. The kids in the world at the moment, what do they want? They want just materialistic things. The best way to treat your child is what? What is the best way? Not to give them a book or anything nowadays. What is it? Xbox, PS3, iPod, yeah? This is the best way to treat them, is it not? If you give anything less than this, when their birthdays or so on come, what happens? The child, he scoffs. What is this? What is this? My luck, I'm born into this family. They will say something like that. Nasib, eh? Nasib. This is what they say in other languages. This is what is my destiny. Can you have it? But that's what children are like nowadays. When they grow up, they're like that. So one of the things is parenting classes are going to be offered where the government are going to give vouchers so you don't pay for these things, because of the issue, they have a problem of how people bring up their children. Like for example, I said those two, one boy, one girl, 11-year-old, caught in the riots. How is it that it's possible for them to do this? It would never be possible if they had good parents, or they had parents who had the right skills to teach them the right things to do in society. So this is by way of introduction. Inshallah ta'ala, we're going to focus a little bit more on the issue of parenthood in Islam. And I'm going to give you some advice as to what Islam says regards to parenthood. But I want you to discuss the points I mentioned in the introduction just to show you that it is a universal problem. It affects society in whole. First and foremost, before we can become parents, Islam is so strict when it comes to the issue of two people coming together and bringing a child into society. Islam is very strict on this. One of the things from amongst the maqasid Sharia, one of the things from the purpose of the Sharia is that the Sharia came to protect the nasab of people, the lineage of people. This is one of the things that the Sharia came. So one of the things that the Sharia doesn't like, and when I mean Sharia, it doesn't necessarily mean we have a government here or so on. We mean what Allah legislated upon us. Allah doesn't like the fact that you have relationship outside of marriage. This may sound like an old-fashioned value I'm talking about, you know. Nowadays when they have civil partnership. What is civil partnership? Where people don't have to be man or wife even. You see? So Islam goes back to marriage. None of this civil partnership or same-sex marriages or anything like this. Islam doesn't recognize any of this. Maybe a little bit old-fashioned, but this is from the legislator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who sent us the Sharia. Who is Al-Hakam Al-Adal, the one who's the judge, who's the just, Al-Hakim, the wise. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He knows the nature of man. He created us after all. So one of the things the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, Az-zawaj min as-sunnati, faman ragiba an sunnati, falaysa minni. This is from the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He said that the marriage is from my sunnah, and whoever leaves is not from me. Now, this is very important for us, because the Muslim Ummah has changed with times. It has moved on. And unfortunately, one of the things is that the influences from other communities, let's say the West, for example, there's not true, it's just the West, but other influences come in. See, in the beginning, when Islam came, Islam was something strange. People used to get married very young. The Prophet ﷺ, he gave us advice that whoever amongst you can afford to get married, get married. أتزوج نساء فمن رغب عن سنتي فليس مني. I'm someone who marry women. He, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, encouraged us to marry many women. And young. But if you can't do, then what should you do? As-siyam. As-siyam junnah. The fasting is a shield for you. The fasting, which doesn't cost you anything, will stop you from doing the thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't want you to do, which is zina. Because if you're not married, and we're talking about instinct a lot, the procreation instinct is something very strong in each and every one of us. If you're not married, then this instinct will still be there. And what will happen? People will need to do haram actions. People will end up doing haram action. So that's why the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, first and foremost, he said, anything that you want to do, any family unit, anywhere where you're bringing children into society, has to be based upon something solid and wholesome and accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is an-nikah. Don't ever underestimate this. That's why one of the things that disheartens me is when I see our ummah at the moment, when I find our youth, they cannot get married. Are we all married here? Who's not married here? Allah make it easy for you. MashaAllah. Allah make it easy for you. I pray Allah makes it easy for you. You're all very handsome, MashaAllah, so I can't see there being a problem. But there is a problem. There is a problem. Do you understand? There is a problem. It could be our sisters are fussy, or they want to do careers, and it could be yourself. You're not pushing yourself enough. If you imagine how the Sahaba used to go and pick women. They used to say, yeah, so we want to marry this woman. And the Prophet ﷺ would say, did you go to see them? They said, no, we just want to marry her. He said, go and check. It may be that you find a defect. So what they would do, the Sahaba, they would go to this extent. These are people guaranteed paradise. They would go and hide behind somewhere and see the woman in a natural state just walk by. I mean, not go and interfere with her. Just see her as if she was walking by, and if he was happy, then alhamdulillah, it would go ahead like that. See how simple Islam is. So first and foremost, before we can talk about parenthood, we've got to think about cementing that relationship we have. So that's why it has to be between spouse. I mean, those who are married. And it's very important we understand this. Because even if a child is born, and unfortunately this is happening amongst Muslims, because I get the calls. People who say, you know, Ya Akhi, Ya Maulana, Ya Sheikh. People ring up and they'll say, there's somebody I know, so wants to get married. Can't find anyone to marry them. And I'll say, why is this the case? Is there not enough imams out there? There are enough imams. They said, oh, I think the girl is pregnant. The girl is pregnant. Can I perform this marriage? Are you sure? No. One of the conditions for the nikah is the belly of the woman. Meaning the woman, yes? Womb has to be empty. Remember this. So that's why a lot of deception happens. When people do the wrong thing, remember this. That's why I'm up front. I would say, and there's no shyness in regards to this. Because if I cement something and afterwards it transpires, the deception, null and void. The relationship is null and void. So I always say, the woman, do you know her from before? No. Okay, that's fine, alhamdulillah. If you don't know her from before, that's fine. Oh, you did know her from before. Oh, she was someone non-Muslim, become Muslim. I said, fine. Did you have a relationship with her? So I'm not shy to ask. I would say, did you? Yes, I did. Okay, has she had any clean cycles? Tell me this. I've gone to that extent just to make sure, because I fear Allah. I fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before I can cement this. So it's important. So that's why even if a child is born, because we're talking about parent, even a child is born, that child will never ever be attributed to the one who did adultery. I mean the man. Adultery will never ever be. The minimum, if they do it outside of wedlock, is that the woman will take the child and it will be from breastfeeding. And if it is, for example, an affair, where a man, he has an affair with a married woman, that child belongs to the husband of the woman, never that man. Subhanallah. Can you see how much? Because we said the purpose of the Sharia is what? Protect the nasab. Protect the lineage, which is honor. That's why people marry other people. They think this is an honorable family. We want to have honorable children. We want to be able to trace back our lineage. That's why the Sahaba, you know, they were so free. They wanted to marry any woman. And even if a woman was a prostitute before, because they're so open about the Islam, they said, I want to marry this woman. And the Rasul ﷺ said, no, this woman, she cannot marry you. You are Sahaba. You're amongst the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. They can marry people like themselves. For you, you need to have something more better than that. So the Prophet ﷺ, even though these people, they turned into Muslims afterwards, because of the fact of their lineage, that they were known to have this bad lineage, Prophet ﷺ didn't accept some of the companions marrying them. So this is the first thing. I want us to understand this point before we even talk about children, because this causes a lot of problem in society. If you find a lot of the children that are playing up in society, what is it? Half the time they don't have a father figure. And secondly, even if they have a father figure, it's not the proper father. It's a stepfather that's looking after them. If you look to the record of these children, what is happening? So can you see how Islam puts so much emphasis on this? It cannot be understated. So much emphasis on the fact that you need to start off on the right foot, as they say, or you build your foundation with the right material. So that's the first thing we need to understand. Secondly, we need to understand that having children, because parenthood is all about having children, and the desire to want to have children is something which is part of the fitrah. What does fitrah mean? Natural state. Because once parents marry, the child's parents marry, then what will happen is naturally they want to have children. So the husband and the wife, they marry, they want to have children. And this is natural desire in anyone. And we know this why? Because it was the fitrah of even the most pious people to have walked the earth, which are the prophets. So we find in the example of Ibrahim alayhi salam, what do we find? He wanted to have a child. Very old age, so he was asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Zakaria alayhi salam, he also wanted to have a child. He asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he had children, but what did he want? What did he want to have? I wanted a son. Because all his sons, they died in infancy. So even when he had grown daughters and so on, he wanted to have a son. And Allah did give him a son in later life. His name was Ibrahim. But again died at the age of 2. So one of the things that happened in the time of Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam is his sons that he had, in total he had 3 sons, all died in infancy. So this used to please who? The kuffar and the mushrikeen, because they said that Allah has forsaken this man. He did not continue his lineage. Allah knows best why he didn't continue. Some people say, can you imagine the fitna if there was a son to the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam? People would start to worship the son of the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Many things, the reason. This is the hikmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So one of the things is, it is from the fitrah to want to have children. But one of the things we need to understand, Allah Azza wa Jal, He says that Allah, He will give children. I mean, to some people He will only give sons. Somebody's had 7 sons. You ask them, do they want a daughter? They would say yes. You know, they would want a daughter. In fact, I know one family, there was 12 sons. MashaAllah. And I went to school with one of the boys, okay? Just that's how I know, okay? 12 sons, and in the end, the 13th child was a daughter. Princess, absolute princess. Absolute princess. And 13 was not a bad number for them, okay? Just in case people superstition. 12 sons, and this family, they did not, and it was one wife, by the way, and in the end, 13th child was a daughter. They were absolute princess, a lovely child, because I grew up with the boy. So you can see how people, even if they have children, the fitrah is to have children, they want to have son, but once they have son, they want to have a daughter. And there's other people, they have many daughters. So another family I know, like this, 7 daughters. Imagine every time they thought a son was going to come. Obviously they love their daughters. What happened in the end? 8th child is a son. So it just goes to show, what do you need to have? Patience. You need a lot of energy as well. It's hard enough, okay, when you have so many children. But yes, mashallah, just to show that to want to have this. But I want us to understand, everything requires patience. So Allah will give some sons, some Allah will give daughters, some Allah will give mixed, and some Allah will keep barren. Now this is the tough one, when Allah keeps people barren. The reason being why? Allah is testing your iman. This is how you have to understand. Allah is testing your iman. If you are in this sort of situation, then Allah is testing you to see if you are grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what you have, and if you have patience upon that what you don't have. Because you don't know. Allah may keep you in this state because Allah He's written it down for each and every one of you, but then Allah He may change it. Because Ibrahim alayhi salam, did he think he was barren? And his wife think they were barren? They thought so. But in the end, what did he resort to? Even when his wife Sarah couldn't have a son, what did he resort to? He took a second wife. Now this is one of the things I want to talk about. A second wife. Sometimes what happens in Islam allows this, is that you're allowed to take a second wife. So Ibrahim alayhi salam, he had a son called Ismail, not with Sarah. Sarah was his first wife, but with Hajar alayhi salam. So who allowed the marriage in the first place? Sarah. Just to show, I want you to learn a lesson from this, okay? Sarah, the first wife of Ibrahim alayhi salam, wife of a prophet, very pious, one of the most beautiful women to walk the earth. And she said to Ibrahim, take Hajar, which is your slave girl that was given by one of the kings, take her as your wife now. And then cohabit, because I can't give you children. Hajar had the child MashaAllah, a boy called Ismail. What happened thereafter? What is the natural fitra in co-wives? Jealousy. So those people who think this is another option, you can take the option, but look to this. Some of the most pious people in the world. Ibrahim alayhi salam, he knew how Sarah felt because she could not give children, but the co-wife was there still all the time. With a child now. So in the end, Ibrahim alayhi salam, he took them into the deserts of Mecca. Now people say, the scholars, they debated this. They looked into the history. They said, is it because Sarah said, get rid of them? Because there's some narration that when Hajar left, she had to wear a girdle, like a big dress, to cover the tracks in case Sarah would chase after them, because of the jealousy. But the scholars say, no, this is not the case, because it was Ibrahim alayhi salam. He was a wise husband. He knew how Sarah felt towards this. So in that case, what happened? He decided, and by the commandment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to take them and put them apart. So just to say that sometimes you may think this is a solution, and that if somebody is barren with first wife, to take a second because of the issue. But then you have to play your cards very carefully if you do this, because naturally there's going to be a jealousy between co-wives because of this issue. So just to show you, so it is a test. The type of children you have or the fact you don't have children is all part of the test. And you need to understand, and this is part of having iman, that if you wanted sons and Allah doesn't give you son, Allah knows best why He hasn't given you. Or you want daughters and Allah doesn't give you daughters, then Allah knows best why. Or you want children, and you can see sometimes, look how people bring children to what they don't care. And if you would have just one child, all the love that He would give, but Allah doesn't give you a child. What is this all about? Test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ibtala, it said. It is a test. It is a test for you. And that's why one of the things that everyone will have in Jannah is what? They'll have wife, if they can't have a wife in the dunya. In fact, they have two wives, yes? And they will have children as well. They will have children that they can be like the coolness of their eyes as well. There be boys and that who will serve them, and so they will see, like they will have children in the dunya, they will have children there as well. This is from the understanding of Aqidah. So we're talking about the issue of parenthood, and the first thing we mentioned is that as parents we need to have a solid foundation of our relationship, and it has to be based upon nikah. And then the next issue is that it's all to do with wanting to have children, which is part of the fitrah. And that's why one of the things I say when I do the aqd, the nikah, is that the marriage has two things. It's called tamattu, enjoyment of each other's company, and manfa, which is to have benefit, and that is to have the children. The other thing is that once you have children, and let's talk about some of the rights the child has now, because this as parents, this is the sort of things that we should do, is the child has, even at the time of your conceiving the child, is that you make dua. Even while you have a relationship with your wife, this is one of the rights the child has before the child is born upon each and every one of you, is that you make dua. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, if you are to cohabit with your wife and you don't make the dua, who joins you? Shaitan. So it's something that you need to do. So you do the dua. The other thing is that when the child is born, what should you give it? Good name. So the rights of the child upon the parents at that time, because the child can't decide. Now, if you name your child Monty, yeah, you know, this is an unfortunate name, Monty. I know many people, you think, why is your name Monty? And then after a while, you find out he has to change his name by deed poll to Muhammad or something, mashallah, yes? But who chose it? The parents. So one of the rights of the child, in the first place, is that what you have is a good name. And the Prophet ﷺ said, amongst the best names are what? Abdullah, Abdurrahman. Those names associated with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the names of prophets. Because your name has a certain characteristic upon you. That's why, you know, the name Hafsa is quite a strong name. My daughter and your daughter, I'm sure, Hafsa. My wife always goes, you named her Hafsa, you could have given a more gentle name. I said, why? Because it's like she's a lion cub. She's quite boisterous and so on. I said, yes. It has that effect on her, but maybe she's got some of the characteristics from brothers, you know, having two brothers, this is what happens. So name has a certain effect on a child. So the things that we're told to do is what? To give them good names. Okay? So you have to have a good wife in the first place, and then you have a son or a daughter, and you give them good names. These are the rights of the child upon you, inshallah ta'ala. And obviously, the thing is to understand is that at that time even, you're asking Allah to protect the child. So one of the things that most of the people do when the child is born is they do the adhan. Some scholars debate whether this is authentic or not, but majority of the madhaib, they say when a child is born, what you do is adhan. So you're remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you're trying to protect the child from the very beginning. And this is part of the thing that I mentioned about parenthood, that parenthood is all about, first and foremost, about you caring for the child. That you care for the child. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Kullukum ra'in wa kullukum masul. Each and every one of you is a shepherd. And each and every one of you is in charge of your flock. Now, this is the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. And amongst this, he said, the rajul, he is in charge fi ahli. He's in charge of his household. So one of the things you need to understand, once you have children and so on, they become under your charge. Now, this is important we understand this, because a lot of the time we think when we have children, whose charge are they under? Mother. And this is a wrong concept. Okay, because the hadith says that the man is in charge of his household. What is the woman in charge of? Do you know what the woman is in charge of? The hadith. Do you know the hadith, yeah? Okay, the woman is in charge of baiti zawjiha, the household. I mean, the house. I mean, she makes sure everything in the house environment is correct. Food, clothing, all of this is in correct order. You see? The place looks in a nice and tidy place. But who is in charge of the children? You are. Now, this is the problem that we have. Okay, us, the Muslim brothers, what do? Half the time we're outside, and it's not always necessarily working. We're with the other brothers. Yes, we like to be in the masjid, we like to be here, we like to do the talks, we like to do all of these things. We left the woman all the time with the children. And we think that is her charge, because she's in charge of the house. No, the hadith says that you are in charge of your family. Your wife is in charge of the house, and the bits and pieces in the house. You don't interfere. That's why we say the woman in Islam is queen. You know, have you ever discussed furniture with your wife? Wallpapers? You know, us men, we don't like change. I have this all the time. But honestly, trust your wives. I'll tell you why. They know best. Men, we don't bother. Half the time we're not in the house anyway. So if we find a sofa moved, what do? Wait till she's gone shopping, we moved it back. Was it worth it? Because you'll have to move that back again. No, but just to show you, that's the hikmah, the wisdom of the Prophet ﷺ, saying that you leave the woman to be in charge of the house, because it's the way she likes it. And now you need to look after the children. And that's why one of the things that I mentioned in marriage is that when somebody marries, is that you need to do what is provide the nafaqah. Nafaqah, which is the provision. Food, clothing, shelter. This is what I normally tell the women. But on top of this is what? If the child falls ill, medicine. On top of this is what? Money for the child. Now, one of the things that happens is, as the men folk especially, we feel very tight to spend on our wives. Okay? We feel very tight to spend on our children, but we spend it on other things. And the funny thing is, we feel like we shouldn't have to spend more than the minimum. Now, I'm not saying this is the general thing. This happens. The reason being, it happened in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Hind. Who is Hind? Tell me who is Hind? The wife of Abu Sufyan. Who is Abu Sufyan? They're Muslims about this time, yes? Abu Sufyan used to be the leader of the Quraysh. He used to be the leader of the tribe. I mean, one of the richest people in Mecca. Hind came and complained to the Prophet ﷺ and said, do you know Abu Sufyan? He's such a stingy, miserly person. He's so stingy, he will not spend on us, I mean myself or our children. And this was actually the true habit of Abu Sufyan. He wouldn't, may Allah be pleased with him, he wouldn't spend on his wife and so on. So the Prophet ﷺ said to him, you take from him, I mean out of his purse, whatever you require, provision, nafaqah. He should be providing, but if he's someone miserly, you take from him. And likewise, the children can do the same from the parents if they don't provide. This is what the Sharia says. Because this is one of the duties that the man has to do. He has to provide for the wife and he has to provide for the child. And it's funny that we have this sort of mentality in our community. I mean, men, they rather spend money on plots of land. If you speak to the elders, plots of land, raising buildings, business, trade, they do all of this. All of that is left to who in the end? When the man passes away, who is he left to? The family, but not just any family member. You know, people are cut off. If you have a wife and children, a lot of the people that will inherit from you, they're cut off anyway. So who is he left for in the end? The wife and the children, who you should be providing for anyway. So this is a lesson for those people who are miserly, who don't like to spend on their wife and the children. Look, you're doing all of that thing, you're not going to take any of this with you. In the end, it will be left because you have a duty to provide for your wife and your children, and even when you pass away, your wealth goes to them. Subhanallah. Can you see? So there's no need for us to be miserly in this issue. So this is why one of the things which is part of the duty of the care is that we try to do this, that we provide for the children. Now this brings me on to a point. Did you watch this program recently which was aired on the TV about Romanian gypsies? Anyone see it? If you haven't seen it, please go and watch it on the telly. The reason being, you may think, oh, Romanian gypsies, what is the issue? A lot of the problem we find in society, okay, is that you'll find, for example, people giving Islam a bad name. These people, Romanian gypsies, they give Islam a bad name. Because one of the things that they do, they're out there begging. Is begging allowed from Islam? It's not allowed. In fact, the Prophet ﷺ told us that the one who begs and has no need to beg, what will happen to them? The punishment is that they will have no flesh on the Day of Judgment. Can you see how disgraceful this act is? You beg and you don't need the money really. You're begging because it's a profession, a way of life. Now this program showed begging, but the reason it was hard hitting because who was begging? It was women and who else? Children. They should be provided for anyway, but the most abhorrent thing there was that they were using the children. They were using these small children, and they said some as young as 2 years old, to go and beg and so on. And what were they targeting? Masajid, places where there's a lot of Muslims. They were, because they used to wear the khimar and the jilbab, and they dress the kids like this. And they admit they're not Muslims. And we know that they're not Muslims, they're travelers. They have their own sort of religion and so on. But they would go into the Muslim community, especially on, like today, Yawm al-Jum'ah. They would go outside the big masajid and they would ask for money and so on and so on. And once they got a pound, they would ask, no, give us £5, then £10, £20. And people were giving like this. But look, the issue is, this would never ever happen in a Muslim community. Because the duty of care is on the man to provide. The woman doesn't go out to do this sort of thing. And a child cannot be exploited like this. Because one of the things about parenthood is that you provide everything for your child. So you can see how abhorrent it is. But to be honest, can you see how it affects us as a community? When people see the non-Muslim, what do they think? They think all Muslims are like this. Yet we fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We fear that if we beg and we don't need the money, what will happen? We will have no flesh. Yawm al-Qiyamah. So we need to be careful about this. So this is the first point I want to discuss, that really, you can see amongst the parenthood is that you have a great duty to care for them. And this is something that you should have. And if you don't care for your children, then there's something wrong. There's something going totally against the fitrah. And fitrah, which is the natural instinct in each and every one of you. And obviously Islam comes to cement that which is a good practice. The next point I want to talk about, this is something that you would truly associate with good parenthood, is the issue of hidayah, guidance. Now, guidance is so important. It is a matter of life and death. You glad you're Muslim today? Alhamdulillah. You glad you're Muslim today? Listen to the hadith of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He said, "Ma min mawludu yuladu ala al-fitra." That which is born upon a fitra. فَإِنْ أَبَاهُ أَوْ يُحَوِّدَانِ أَوْ يُنَصُرَانِ أَوْ يُمَجِّسَانِ. Hadith of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Each and every one of you is born upon a fitra, a natural instinct. But it is your parents that will make you what? Yahud, which is someone Jewish, Nasrani, Christian, or even Majus. Majus means what? Fire worshipper. Why was the Prophet ﷺ talking about those three religions? Because that was the most prevalent other religion other than the mushrikeen. See, the fire worshippers seem different as to the mushrikeen of Mecca. Prophet ﷺ said that each and every one of you born upon a fitrah. What does this fitrah mean? Does it mean you're born as in Muslim, mean ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadur Rasulullah? It doesn't mean that necessarily. Fitrah means that to want to worship other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not the fitrah. It's not a natural instinct. So how is it that people can bow down? Let's use example the Christians, because we're in this Christian country. That people can want to bow down to something they create with their own hand, which is Christ on a cross, on a crucifix. Is that not what they do? When they go to the church, is that not the image? Yes. So how does that happen? The Prophet ﷺ said it will be the parents that will pollute the fitrah. It will be the parents that will change. So that's why one of the obligations upon us with regards to our children, and obviously talking from an Islamic point of view, is that we teach them religion. It's so important. And it goes to the point even to understand is how to protect the religion. Now, Nuh alayhi salam, when he gave da'wah to the people, what was he calling people to? Tawheed, yes? How many years did he give dawah? Okay. So how many generations do you think there were? Many generations of people that lived amongst this. Just to show you how it's important, the role the parents play in religion. When Nuh alayhi salam gave dawah to a people, when they rejected, they had children, he tried to give dawah to the children. And then he tried to give dawah to their children. Do you know what happened? Each generation taught their own children that there's this man here, just to show you, there's this man here, is called, whatever he's calling to, reject it. So Nuh alayhi salam, he had, say the first generation, then the second generation, and the third, he had to deal with all of them. And tried to go to each one of them, and go to the children, and try to bring some of the people onto the boat in the end. You know, the scholars say, they said in the end, the amount of people varies. I mean, after 950 years of da'wah, up to 10 to 80 people maximum. They reckon 10 to 80 people only accepted. The reason being is not because people didn't want to accept. People have fitrah. People, I mean, you found Islam, didn't you? You found Islam. And I know that usually a lot of sisters, the reverse, they come, they found Islam. How did you find it? Wouldn't be your parents necessarily. You went to find it. You did a bit of soul searching, and alhamdulillah, you become Muslim. People will do this if they're left to their own devices. But if you teach children, no, reject, 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 then what will happen? They will reject. And that's why Nuh alayhi salam, he made the dua, Allah, don't leave any one of them, I mean the disbelievers. Because if you leave them, they're just going to continue upon this. That's why the educational psychologists and people, they say that by the time a child is 5 years old, any prejudice is already there. 5 years old. So if you teach children to hate, for example, someone from fair skin, dark skin, or someone from certain religion, another religion, by the time they're 5, they got the prejudice in them. Which shows that children are quite sharp from a young age, aren't they? They show that they're very sharp from a young age. So it shows that there are prejudices there that can easily be instilled in a child. But the child doesn't know any different. So you find terminology being used. So it's so important that we provide guidance. And the first guidance we have to provide is religion. Now, does that mean we sit with a 2-year-old and start to say, so, you know, when the time for zakah comes, the nisab is so, you know, the mal is so much, has to be 1 hawl. You don't do that. But you have to instill in them, you know, the fitrah that they have. And part of the fitrah, even in a child, you find is that they don't like to be naked. It's one of the things you do, if you take a child's trousers and even to change the nappy, they want the nappy back on straight away. You find all of these things part of the fitrah. So what you do as parents, you just home in on that. Teach them the sky, the sun, the moon, why is it all there? And as we're involved in the madrasa anyway, so we can see, we teach from age of 3 to 14. And we're teaching the children from the age of 3 Islamic studies. Do you know, it has an effect. They're learning names of Allah and they know what that name means and how it affects us. Can you see? So all of this, we have to teach them religion. And it's important for us to understand that what you teach them has to benefit them both in the dunya as well as the akhirah. Because the ayat says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara wa quduha an-nasu wal hijara. Oh, you who believe, safeguard yourself, safeguard your family from a fuel. The hellfire, which is fuel, is men and stone. So a lot of the times we are guiding our children with education, yes? And they become doctors, yes? They become engineers. We're pushing them in that sort of field, and then what happens in akhirah? What will happen to them in the akhirah if they don't know the Islam? Something very, very serious. That's why Imam Ali, he said, when it comes to the guidance, adibuhum wa allimuhum. Teach them etiquettes, and then what? Give them religious knowledge. This is what you need to do. Imam Malik, rahmatullah alayh, one of his titles is Imam Dar al-Hijrah. The Imam of Dar al-Hijrah in Medina. He was the main Imam there. One of the things that his mother did when she sent him to study with the scholars is to put him in full turban, distasha, and so on. He's very young, maybe 5 to 6 years old at the time. But he was dressed in this way. The reason being, Imam Malik's mom said, when you go to study with the scholars, take from them what first? Etiquettes. She dressed her son like a scholar even before he was a scholar. It has an effect. We run a madrasa. One of the things we stipulate very strictly is to have uniform. If you dress your children in that state rather than a Manchester United t-shirt, and I know it's under Omar's thobe, I know it's under there. He can hide it, but at least he doesn't show this. And for some, anyway, not to worry. Manchester, there's a lot of clash between teams, subhanallah. In amongst the hifz, there's a lot of team debate going on, subhanallah. Anyway, so this is why the attire has an effect. The whole psychology of the child. And sometimes I get the children, when they want to sleep, what do they say? Ya Ustad, it's so hot. Can I take my uniform off? I say, no. You came in this manner and you leave in this manner. Because you're representing us as well. You're representing us as well. So it's important that when we teach them deen, we teach them the etiquettes. It's so important that we do this. And then we understand that we are primarily the main role models in our children. Though we send them to teachers and so on, the main religion they're going to learn is from you. The main etiquettes that they're going to learn are from you. And that's why if you have younger children and you pray at home, what do you find straight away? They pray. 2-year-olds, 1.5-year-old, they're praying. And when you do your Fatiha, they say Ameen. They say all of these things. Did they go to madrasa for that? They didn't go to madrasa. Did you even teach them the ahkam as-salah? You didn't teach them this. So you are role models. You are role models. And for those people who think, I don't have children, how can I be a role model? Let's think about Aisha radiallahu anha. Her title, her kunya was what? Abdullah. She was called Abdullah. Okay, the mother of Abdullah. She had no children. But do you know she looked after many children? All her nephews and nieces and so on, she used to look after them. Just to show you that you have an effect. You are a role model. Because the extended family has this. You can be a role model. Just like the parents are a role model, you are a role model. So you have a role to play. Because salah for children, for example, we're not even advised to teach them, because the advice doesn't come, except that we teach them from the age of? We teach them from the age of 7, the salah, yes? And if they don't pray, by the age of 10, what should we do? Admonish them. They say beat them, but it means admonishment. It's easier in this day and age, this political correct society that we live in. If we were to just use the darab, the Arabic word hit, really you've got to imagine the hitting in Islam, any form of hitting is so light, it's just more insult than anything else. And especially now they're outlawing smacking in this country anyway. There's no room for this. Okay? But it's just say admonishment. So by the time they're 10, they're just admonished to pray. Then what happens? By 15 or 12, depending, girls are 12, boys are 15, this is when they mature. That's the point when Allah does what? Accounts them. Before that, the salah is not accountable. Why do they do the practice? Make it a habit. You try and teach a 15-year-old to pray. You'll be surprised they can't even remember the 4 fard parts of wudu. And I'm telling you why. I've tried to teach 20-year-olds. 20-year-olds. Never prayed, all of a sudden, wudu is so hard. What do you mean fard? What do you mean sunnah? I just saw somebody just do it like that. You mean that's fard? I said, yes, that's fard. What's fard? I had someone come up in their 20s say, what is qibla? Can you imagine this? And this man is in his 20s. So what happened? Can you see there's hikmah behind tarbiyah? Why the age of 7? Why is 7 a key age in Islam? It is known the age of tamayyuz, distinction. A child in Islam, by the age they're 7, they can differentiate between right and wrong. They know what's going on. That's why at 7, what do we do? Boy and girl, they sleep together. What do we do, sister? What do we do to the children? Separate their beds. Okay? And at that age, they're asked when they come to the parents' room to knock. They know, by that age, we call the age of tamayyuz, the age of distinction, they have to. That's why Islam said that is the pinnacle point. The point when they understand. And that's why that's also a good age when you want to teach your children hifz. Golden age. They really just got that understanding. So Islam puts, that is a good time to give guidance. Not to wait till they're 15, 16. Oh, I didn't want to trouble my child. Let him do his GCSEs. Now let me teach him Islam and send him madrasa. Too late. Too late. So, just to explain about this issue. So, we said it's important for a child that they should have what? They should have good parents. They should have good name. And they should learn the deen. And khayrukum man ta'allama Quran wa 'allama. The best amongst you is the one who learns Quran and teaches it. Remember this. 3 things, yes? Remember this because there's an incident, and that will cement the story in your head, inshallah ta'ala. Incident in the time of Umar Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu. A man came to complain about his son. He said, this son, and this is in this time of Umar, imagine this. He's the qadi, he's the judge. The man comes and said, my son is so disobedient, doesn't listen to me, and so on. Omar, when he heard this, he was so angry. Ashudduhum fi amrillah. He's so angry for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, bring this boy to me now. So the child was brought to Omar. And he said, is this true? Your father says that you disobey him, and so on. You don't listen to him? The child said yes. To which Omar, he said, you are not fulfilling the rights of your parents. So then the child, who could be punished at that time now for doing this, turns around to Omar and said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, does not the child have rights upon the parents too? To which the Amir al-Mu'mineen said yes. The child then says, what are the rights of the child upon the parents? Who is the child asking? The Caliph, the leader of the Muslim Ummah. So Omar, he goes, the right of the child is that he has a good mother. The right of the child is that he has a good name. And the right of the child is that his parent teach him Quran. Omar, he just said those three things. So the child, he says, well, firstly, my father, when he married, he didn't marry a righteous woman. He married someone, a Majusi. Majusi means fire worshipper. So he married someone who's a fire worshipper, not even Muslim. Secondly, he called me Ju'lan. Ju'lan, which means dung beetle. Not even beetle, the dung beetle, which goes to the droppings of animals and removes that. So imagine in Arabic having that name in society. And thirdly, my father did not teach me one word from the Quran. So he said, Ya Amir al-Mu'min, you may punish me, but surely has my father not failed me in this instance? So Omar, he turns around to the father, he said, be off with you. He said, be off with this case. You have wronged your son before he had wronged you. And he dissolved the case. How smart children are. How smart children are, and how fair Islam is to show you. So we have a right and duty to teach our children and to guide them properly. The last point I want to mention, and this is something just as a guideline again, is that we supervise our children. That we keep an eye on our children. Not good enough that we just give them education and so on and we leave them to be as they are. The reason being is children, when they come to that period where they're 11 to 15, that sort of period is when they're trying to find themselves. They try to be a little bit more independent. That's also the time for secondary school, is it not? See, one of the things that will happen is primary school children are quite innocent. Come that time, they're easily led astray. The peer pressure. If you want to know why is it that, for example, my son is taking drugs now, you need to look to that period. Why is it, for example, my son is causing damage in society and fighting with people? Look to that period. Why is it, for example, that he's in gangs? Look to that period. Because ar-rajul ala dini khalili. The Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, a person is on the religion of some of their friends. So the fact that we just give them education not enough. We have a duty as well to supervise them and to see what they're doing. Who are the type of friends? You have a say in this. Because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, you are on the religion of your friend. If you find this child is a bad influence, then you need to warn your child. The friends that they have. And that's why one of the things is, nowadays you find parents, even in secondary school, they're there to drop off their children and to collect them. Secondary school. I mean, they know what they're doing, but they're there to drop them off and collect them. For what reason? I spoke to one parent. I said, why? Because he's quite an elderly man. He goes, this is my job for 5 years at least. I will drop my son off and I will collect them, because if I don't, this is the time they will go astray. He goes, you see that corner there? Those youth, they're just waiting for the stray sheep or the lamb, waiting to sell drugs. See that group over there? That group there, waiting just to fight with somebody. This is what you will get. Is not the case. So your children have a right that you supervise them, that you spend quality time with them, and that you keep an eye on them and you protect them from those things that will harm them. I mean, one of the other news articles on his headlines today as well, did you see this little girl from China? Again, if you didn't, 2-year-old, yes? Parents busy earning a living in a shop. This 2-year-old walked out onto the road. Now, it's not like a road like this. It's a quiet road. A van which kind of been going too fast, but the van knocked this child over, 2-year-old, and drove off. This is in China. That child sustained injuries to the point knocked unconscious and bleeding. They said they saw on the CCTV 18 people walk past this child. Not one person helped. In amongst that time, another van came and drove over the foot and the leg of the child. Further injuries whilst unconscious. In the end, it was a rubbish man, like a man who takes garbage. He came and dragged her to the side, realized what had happened, and called the ambulance after a long time. That child sustained enough injuries to have died from it. She was in hospital to die from it. Look at the anguish on the parents. Now, what happened? Where was the supervision then? Because they were trying to earn a living. Is that excuse enough to lose sight of your child? Secondly, what about the society? 18 people walk by, and if you were to watch this clip, watch it today because these clips will go soon. Watch them. They walk by, they even looked, and one woman, she had a child, she saw what was happening and she drew her child away and walked away even further. This is society. This is society. Just to show you how society is. So that's why it's important for us that we keep an eye on our children from the time they're born and to supervise them up to adulthood, because this is the amana trust. This is the amana, the trust that has been put upon you. And we don't want tragedies like that. Even the case of the girl that was taken in Portugal, yes? Do you know the case? I mean, these are two educated people. I'm not going to mention the name. Two educated people, they left the child to have a meal. Where is the duty of care? Where is the supervision? Where is all of these things? That's why that case did not get much public sympathy. Did not get much public sympathy. Because where is your role? Your parents, where is the parenthood in this? Where is your role? Where is your fulfilling your duties and your obligation? Where is it? So that's why it's very important that those of us are parents and those of us who are part of extended family, we fulfill our rights when it comes to the issue of parenthood. And Islam looks at it very seriously because you have been given this trust. The children that you have are being given trust to you, and even you, the extended family members. If you see members in your family is going astray, and you don't do anything about it, you are accountable Yawmul Qiyamah. That's what the crux of the matter is in the end of the day. Is that if you don't care, and you don't guide people, and you don't supervise the youth, what will happen? You will be the one accountable Yawmul Qiyamah. You cannot be free of these obligations. And that's the most important thing for us to understand. Is that the parenthood in Islam is there so that we protect people in the dunya, and we save ourselves as well as our family members in the akhirah from the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَقُولِ قَوْلِ هَذَا أَسْتَغْفِرُ لِي وَلَكُمْ.
If there's any questions from brothers, please raise your hands. Sisters, if they could write it down on a piece of paper and bring it forward to the table, inshallah. So let's start with the brothers, inshallah. Any questions?
So just regarding, obviously, in Islam, it focuses a lot on the importance of the mother. Could you just give a little bit on the importance of the father regarding his stature and his status, inshallah?
The question is just the importance of the father. Obviously, we all know the mother very well.
Yes. It all comes from the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where somebody asked, who has the most right upon me, regards to companionship, which means to serve them, and he said, Ummuk. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, your mother. And then Thumma man, who after that? Ummuk. Then the person who was asking said, Thumma man, said Ummuk. 3 times the mother was mentioned, and the person was persistent. Thumma man, Abuk, your father. Now, there's a few things we can learn from this. Obviously, the status of the mother can never be underestimated, and the brother knows this, and everyone knows this. But the fact is, this person who was asking obviously loved their father, because they wanted to know if the father has any portion of this. So it just shows that the father has a role and has a share and is expected to get respect from you. You're supposed to respect them for this issue and to give them time and so on. Quite a lot of the times we are very close to our mother because of the fact, obviously we spend time, a lot of the time our mothers are supervising us. But the father in Islam has so much respect. Okay? And so much is said about them, even to the point that on Yawmul Qiyamah, even though your mothers gave birth to you, the name you're called by is Ibn so-and-so, the son of so-and-so. And that's why in the Arab society it was a disgrace not to know who your father was, so that you couldn't have this. Who is the son of so-and-so? So the father has a lot of right upon you, and so on. Even to the point that your name, which is your father's name, is respected. Like I said in the beginning, that if a relationship comes about, and the woman does something which is dishonorable, and brings about another child, that child will never be attributed to somebody else. The man's dignity will be kept. I mean, his lineage is kept preserved. And in no way there is any tarnish. Obviously the father has all the respect to honor him. And not just that, even when he passes away, you need to honor his friends. Can you see how much the father has an effect on you? Is that even when the father passes away, one of the things that you should go and find his friends and honor them and respect them as well, as a duty. And this is what some of the companions used to do. They used to go and find other people, and they said, this used to be the friend of my father. And they used to go and honor them and so on. And that's why one of the games we play a lot, and I know as parents I do this, we always ask our children, who do you love more, mummy or daddy? Okay? And just to show you how children change. I've got my older two boys, if I say to them, who do you love more, mummy and daddy, straight away they will say, mummy and daddy. And they make a point mentioning mummy first. Mummy and daddy. If I mention my daughter, 6-year-old, and I say, who do you love more, mummy or daddy? She'll say, I love mummy and daddy. But some days I love mummy more, and some days I love daddy more. Still very political. If I ask my 2.5-year-old, who do you love, mummy or daddy? She will say, daddy. Okay? And then she will say, mummy naughty. Okay? Just to show you. Now we play these games, don't we? Yes? We play these games because we want our children to know. But the best way for us is to keep it balanced like that. That's why one of the things we should not do is argue in front of our children. We play these games, but in the end the children, they're so shrewd. They know they need both, don't they? Yes? But one of the things we don't do is argue, and if we do argue, we never make the children take side. That's why one of the things that we shouldn't do is even argue in front of the children. But if we do, never let them take sides. In the end, both of you play an important role. So this is to just mention some of the things, inshallah ta'ala.
Sorry, before you assist this question, question on my own. Being a Riva, obviously, born with a Muslim last name. Obviously, when you have children, you may give them a Muslim first name. What should you do with the second name, obviously, if it's not the Muslim one? MashaAllah. Very good. Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam, rasulullah. Very good question the brother has mentioned. The issue is, your parents, you don't disown them. And even if they are non-Muslims, you can never disown them. They will always be your parents. Okay? And you will always be called by their name as well, even if you have a first Muslim name. And that's why the surname generally is not changed, because we need to trace you as well, who you are. In the Arab society, because genealogy is something that's speciality that came from the Arab society, to the experts on tracing back who your parents were, your grandparents were, and so on, were the two great companions of the Prophet ﷺ, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq and Umar radiallahu anhuma. They are both experts in genealogy. And that's why one of the things the Prophet ﷺ, he used to tell the poets, because one of the things that they used to do in poetry is obviously rubbish somebody's family a little bit. That was the best way the Arabs used to do it. So Prophet ﷺ told these poets, go and see Abu Bakr first before you start making poetry. The reason being, you may wrong somebody's family and so on. So be careful, find out who you're speaking about and so on. So the issue is, in Islam, just from a fiqh point of view, you can keep your full English name as long as it doesn't contradict something in Islam. In fact, for example, people used to be called Abdul Shams. What does that mean, Abdul Shams? Servant of the sun. Not allowed. Rather, the Prophet ﷺ said, call yourself Abdul Rahman. Call yourself the one who is the Rahman, I mean the God. Not the one who is the creator of the sun. Do this with others. So names in Islam generally don't have to change. And even if you have a name which is an English name, you can keep that.
But a lot of reverts, they change it to an Arabic sounding name because it's easier to accept in the community. Because you imagine the people who reverted in the time of the Arabian Peninsula, they had Arabic names anyway. So it was easy for people to understand. But obviously in our community, it's much easier if you have the name Michael to be called Mikhail. It's much easier for you to be accepted in society. So what you do, brother, you keep your surname. And that will be a surname, and there's nothing wrong with that at all, inshallah ta'ala. And Islam doesn't say that you have to change this. And we pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala we ask him to guide your parents as well. Ameen.
What advice can you give if one parent chooses to put pressure on the children to do salah and wear hijab, and the other chooses to make more effort on tawheed and give the children the chance to choose, but still makes them aware that at 10 this choice will no longer be there? Does Allah answer the du'as of the children?
MashaAllah. Okay, inshallah ta'ala. That's very clear, mashallah, alhamdulillah, that's very good, mashallah. Thank you, brother, for the question. Obviously, the issue is, now this is where good parenting comes in. You need to be on the same wavelength. So your children's future is in your hands. Okay, it's in your hands. Now, when there is ikhtilaf on an issue, difference on an issue, what you do, obviously, if they're both Islamic and you refer to Allah and there's a preference, usually the man has the say. But one of the things you need to understand is to be balanced. We're a balanced nation. Now, to say to a 7-year-old, khimar and jilbab and niqab and gloves, the child may find this very difficult. Also, khimar and jilbab is fine, but the niqab and glove, there's even ikhtilaf on this issue, even for adults. So, you may follow this as the process, for example, for adults, but you want to impose on the child because you know, no, this child needs to learn at this time. You need to know what is best for the child, and also to understand 7 is the beginning age of tamayyuz. It's the beginning age, for example, of distinction. Child is not accountable until the age of puberty. So if you were to find a girl of 7 without covering, you don't scold that child or so on. And if you seem to find a child of 10 uncovered, you don't scold, they're still children until they reach puberty. Once they reach puberty, and this is what the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, he said to Asma, "Oh Asma, when a girl reaches puberty, she covers her body so other people don't see, and the only thing that should be seen is the face and the hand." Now, we're not talking about the fiqh of niqab or so on. We're talking about, see, that is the time, the Prophet ﷺ said, when the child reaches puberty, that is the time you need to cover up. But what do? Before that, we teach them. Because you try to, a girl who's 12, tell her to wear khimar, it's very difficult. All her friends they're dyeing their hairs and they're doing lots of things and so on. It's very difficult to teach them at that age. So that's why at this time, Tawheed, both of you should be teaching Tawheed, but when it comes to those issues, do sensible parenting. You don't want the child to be repressed as well, in any way, or suppressed, to the point that what will happen once they get their free moment, off goes the khimar, off goes the jilbab. They need to appreciate it as well. So good, sensible parenting is what I say. Does Allah answer the du'as of the children? Yes. But usually, what happens is one of the things the Prophet ﷺ said is that when parents passed away, one of the things that happen is walad salih, if they make yadulahu, if they make dua for the parents, it's always accepted. So the children and the offspring are always the ones that Allah will accept the dua. Do they accept the dua when they're young? Allah will ask. Allah said, "Ud'uni astajib lakum." You all ask upon me and I will respond. So yes, Allah does answer the duas.
Any questions from the brothers? Brothers are very quiet today.
There will be one coming up.
One of the sisters' questions. In regards to a divorced couple, who has more haqq in the discipline of the children? And if the disciplines are different, what Islamic advice would you give, you know, any hadith from Quran that might help?
Alhamdulillah. Well, this is a very big topic, the issue of talaq, divorce. So I'm going to stick just to the question asked. When people separate, one of the things that happens with the separation is you need to decide who is going to have the authority of the children. Okay? One or two scenarios can happen. If they're very young, it could be that it's decided that the mother will keep them until they're of age of understanding what's happened in regards to the relationship. Usually the right is with the father. The reason being, all children, and this is what the Sunnah says, are born in the bed of the husband, the marital bed, and that bed belongs to the husband. That's why even the illegitimate child, the husband takes. Not to do with blood, it's to do with the fact where they were born, in that household. So the main right, it will always be the father to take the children. Now this is very controversial, I know, because it goes against the laws we have in the West. But that's just to give you the understand from the fiqh point with the child. You know, as long as the man is a decent, upright person, he will have right because the lineage, he is preserving his lineage. But there can be amicable arrangement where if the father says, no, these children, they really need the mother. And it's just a personal dispute that they had. Sometimes it can be that the couple just don't like each other. So the best option here is what? For the mother to keep, she can keep them. And she can look after them. And she can ask for provision from the man, okay, but they don't have any marital relationship or anything like that. And then she can bring them up. Now, it depends who has taken the authority. If the mother is given the charge, then she can decide. If the man takes the charge, the authority of the children, then he decides. It depends what happens. Because if you give the charge to the woman and you then allow for her to marry again, then it will be under that household. It will be under that household. This is what you need to understand. So it all depends on how you charge. Because divorce is very messy. That's why one of the things which is halal but most abhorrent in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the issue of divorce. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. We can make the last question, inshallah. Yeah. Last question.
What is the level of grandparents in Islam in terms of how they should be honoured and respected?
The question is, what is the position in terms of their level, in terms of respect and honour of your grandparents in Islam?
Alhamdulillah. Again, if we look to lineage, one of the things is your grandfather has the same rights as the father. Father is looked upon as a father, so the similar respect. That's why, just to put it in a nutshell, if you look to the Prophet ﷺ in the Battle of Hunayn, when, for example, the mushrikeen were attacking the Muslims, a lot of the Muslims, they ran away from the battlefield. He said, Ana ibn Abdul Muttalib. I'm the son of Abdul Muttalib. Abdul Muttalib was his grandfather. Had so much status, so much respect, that name, that in the battlefield, he didn't say, Ana ibn Abdullah, I'm not the son of Abdullah. He said, I am the son of Abdul Muttalib. Okay? There is no doubt in this issue. So he honoured, and who was Abdul Muttalib? Mushrikeen, from amongst the mushrik. But you honour those. You always honour your parents' parent, always. And to that sort of level, that even in the battlefield, the Prophet ﷺ, he teaches a lesson. Look, even at that time, he mentioned the name of his grandfather. And just to show you, that is the level of respect. So yes, we always respect. And they have this haqq from us. They have haqq from us. And they also have haqq upon us to make dua for them when they pass away. And I pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it easy for each and every one of us.
The speaker and everyone attending. Just see. There's one more question. Okay. Then I need to say.
Yeah, mention that.
From 2 to 4.
Yeah, yeah. So, if the children are with the mother and she remarries, does the daughter have to wear hijab in front of him once she hits puberty, and the result the same if the mother has children with this man?
MashaAllah, very good question. Okay, inshallah. The issue is, just I'll reiterate it, is when a woman remarries, she has a husband, that husband will become the stepfather of the children. You have daughters, does she have to cover in front of the person? Depends, there's a little bit of difference, but the opinion I'm going to quote to you is that she doesn't have to. She doesn't have to in front of her stepfather. For what reason? She can never ever marry. And we said mahram is the person that you can never ever marry. Okay, remember this, mahram, that's what mahram means. Means mahram is either the woman's husband or someone she can never marry. So to Yawm al-Qiyamah, if somebody marries a woman, that person cannot divorce and then marry the children. So that point, there is no need to, because the covering is always in front of the non-maharim, the people that are foreign to you. So in that case, you don't have to. And the result, the same if the mother had children with this man. Obviously, the issue of having children with another man, the children are, regards to other children, there's no covering in between or anything like that because they've got the same blood, which means they're mahram to each other anyway. So in this regards, no, there is no need to cover and so on. And Islam makes it very simple. And say likewise, even if you're married, just so you know, and for example, the wife passes away, okay, your mother-in-law is always your mother-in-law, okay, and she can still travel with you even after the wife passes away. You will always be her son-in-law. Okay, you will always be a son-in-law, and you can always be mahram to this woman still, because you can never ever marry your mother-in-law. Just to show how Islam seals it, nips it in the bud. I mean, anyway, we're not going to talk about Jeremy Kyle show or anything like that, but you see some nasty things on that anyway. We'll leave it at that.